What's one weird rule your parents had growing up that you thought was totally normal until you got older? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. No one allowed in or out of the house on New Year's Day until my red-headed uncle came to visit. It's good luck if the first person in the door on New Year's is a redhead. There were 10 kids in my mom's family. Poor Uncle Bill was run ragged by 2 p.m. Story 2. My mom always told me, growing up, that I could wear any color nail polish I wanted, except for red, because, and I quote, "it's a color that hookers wear, so fudge bizarre." Answer: my mom made me take my red nail polish off before we visited my grandma, because grandma would tell her and her sisters off harlots wear red nail polish if she ever caught them. One day we went to visit grandma in the nursing home. I was a teenager who begrudgingly took my red polish off not to upset grandma, and she had bright red nails on. She said some lovely girls from the school down the road came to visit all the ladies and painted our nails. Isn't the color lovely? I was so sour and my mom couldn't believe it. Story 3. Soft drinks are adult drinks. Imagine my horror when I went to a birthday party in kindergarten and the mom started to serve soft drinks to us. 5-year-olds. Being the rule follower that I was, I said that I wasn't allowed to drink it because it was an adult drink. The mom convinced me that my parents would be okay if I had a glass. I remember being very upset with my parents after the party because I was so embarrassed. Story 4. If I had a friend over, went to a friend's house, went to the mall with a friend, or even went outside and played with any other kids one weekend, I better not even ask to do anything the following weekend. Many weekends I spent alone in my room. I was a straight A kid too. And at 17, I had a 9 p.m. curfew on Saturday nights. Answer: didn't you just see them last weekend? Turns out my mom just has no friends and felt the need to enforce her "why go out if I went out a month ago" mindset onto teenagers that would just bike to a friend's house. In the name of "his parents don't want you over all the time," I'm sure of it. Yet, my friends' dads were more influential than my own. Certainly felt like they wanted me there, didn't mine. Story 5. Always talk to the cat in a normal voice, and not in the baby talk voice people do with pets, because he will think you're stupid. He probably does anyway. Answer: I house sat for my brother a couple of years ago with their doofus dog and standoffish cat. I talked to the cat like an adult. When she deigned to appear, I'd say, "Hey, lady." And after a few days, I was there for 3 weeks, it devolved into me singing the opening of "I've Never Been to Me" when she appeared. Apparently, she liked that because she became a lot more social with me week 2. The dog was talked to like a very slow child. Story 6. I had to share any food I brought home, even if purchased with my own money. My mom didn't cook or keep food at home, but ate out every morning. Answer: I had this mom. I'll never forget the screaming match that went down over some Chinese food. She went out with her work friends to a bar and grill, had a great time, then called me for a ride, which just happened to be within minutes of me walking back inside with my Chinese food. But alas, she simply cannot wait to be picked up. You see, she must leave now or the world will end. The whole drive home, she was listing off everything she ate and drank, but the second she saw me get my now lukewarm dinner back out to eat, she started throwing a toddler tantrum because she wanted it, screaming, crying, threatening, stomping, even took a swipe at me. So I fed it to the dogs in front of her and walked out. Food boundaries are firm boundaries for me. Story 7. Meals would be done in order of age. My parents ate first, then my older brother and sister, then me. We never ate together. Story 8. When we were little and the Avon lady would come knocking on our door, my mom would tell us to be very quiet and to not make a noise because it's the mean Avon lady and she has a gun. LOL. We totally believed her, and it wasn't until I was in the 8th grade that we moved, and my little sister's friend's dad would sell Avon at swap meets. We asked if he had a gun, and her friend looked so confused. LOL. We figured then that my mom was just telling us a story to make sure we were quiet, so she didn't have to open the door and deal with the Avon lady. It is still one of the silliest memories of my childhood, and up until my mom passed away 4 years ago, we would give her such a hard time for it. Her response was always, "Well, it got you out to be quiet," and she always went away. I don't know if it's really a rule, but maybe it was. We were never to answer the door to those women. I miss my mom so much. Edit. Spelling. Answer: UK. This was common in my area when I was a kid. My parents worked, so I didn't experience it until I was at a friend's house. But they would play quiet in an attempt to ignore a doorstep lender coming to collect payment. They'd loan money out to impoverished people on welfare at extortionate rates and would go around weekly to collect. I just Googled it. I had Provident Personal Credit shut down in 2021 after 40 years in the business of scamming people in their own homes. Story 9. Not being able to use the couch cushions, pillows, and blankets because those were only to decorate when we had guests over. Ends up my mom has untreated OCD and only told us years later LOL explains a lot of her behavior. Answer, my college girlfriend's mom had obvious but undiagnosed OCD. She had 16 little dots of fingernail polish on the kitchen floor marking where the legs of each of the 4 chairs needed to go. The labels on all the cans in the pantry all pointed to a person standing 6 inches from the door. So the exact angle depended on how far back on the shelf the can was. A room you couldn't walk into because you'd leave footprints on the carpet. A couch you couldn't sit on. I would fudge with her by rotating the centerpiece on the dining table by 5 degrees. She was self-aware enough to know she couldn't admit noticing without sounding crazy. That would be mean to anyone else, but she also happened to be traumatically abusive to her kids, so no regrets. Story 10. No closed doors to bedrooms and bathrooms, even if you were sleeping or taking a shower or taking a dump. I can't poop in a public restroom because, though I know this will never happen, I somehow am afraid of someone getting mad at me for closing the stall door. Answer, OMG, my mom had an absolute meltdown when I started closing and locking doors as a normal tween behavior. She thought I was hiding things, and losing that control drove her to breaking down the bathroom door while I was drying after a bath. Took about a week of me opening the door slightly every time she was in there to replace it. She had to have her privacy. Took a lot of screaming, pounding on the door, stamping her feet, and turning the light off on me to get her used to me locking the door. It was absolutely ridiculous. Every kid should have a level of privacy and be able to close doors and have a parent knock. Oh, and she barged into my bedroom one time as I was getting changed and saw a breast. She laughed at me for weeks because she saw my breast, and it was the funniest thing ever to her. She barged in and proceeded to mock me. That's why I needed privacy. Story 11. My dad used to tell us that we weren't allowed to touch the painted parts of the car because it would mess it up. Only touch the handles. This was so completely ingrained in me that even as an adult, I thought that car paint was somehow easily ruined. It wasn't until working in the automotive industry that I realized that, in fact, it's quite durable and, made to be on the road. Story 12. The interrupt rule. If we wanted to talk to our parents but they were talking to someone else, we would place our hand on their arm, they would acknowledge it by placing their hand on ours, and then we would keep our hands there until they turned to ask us what we needed. I did it to a teacher, and I'll never forget how confused and frankly a little freaked out she looked, seeing a child just touching her arm and staring at her while she was talking to another teacher. Answer. Oof, we were not allowed to interrupt adult conversations. We just had to stand there until acknowledged. I'm still very bad at breaking into a conversation if needed, and usually just hover awkwardly when I have to talk to someone. Also, I often get talked over because we were not allowed to speak until the other person stopped and took a breath, indicating their sentence's story was done. Story 13. We were not allowed to invite a friend over for a sleepover 2 times in a row. They had to host first before we could invite them again. Looking back, I think this was my mom's way of avoiding sleepovers. Answer, our sleepover group parents must have agreed on this lie together because they had a group of us convinced. The rules were that you had to earn your keep. You could sleep over and party all night and have your fun, but in the morning, everyone had to clean the host's house to earn their keep for the night. And I mean deep clean. We were doing laundry, mopping, polishing furniture, cleaning mirrors, and all sorts of stuff. I once had to scale my friend's 2-floor fireplace to dust the sconces. No one was allowed to go home until the host said the job was done. Story 14. We were never ever allowed in their bedroom. Not even if we were sick or scared. We would stand at the open door and yell for them. Answer, LOL. My parents were never able to enforce this rule. They'd wake up to find all of us, plus the dog and cat, asleep in their bed. Dog in one corner, me in the other, older brother somehow squished between them, cat on mom's face, and younger brother sprawled over everybody. They had a waterbed. I have no idea how we managed to be so stealthy sneaking in. Story 15. When our father got home from work, we'd be sent to our rooms, sometimes until the time he left the next morning. He'd get home and not want to interact with us, so we'd be sent off across the house, checked on occasionally, spanked or yelled at if we got too loud. Luckily, I had my older brother, but it got lonely, and it was better than being around him because he was mean and aggressive. He once left black and blue belt stripes across my brother's back because he was caught jumping on the bed again. When I was 2 or 3, he put me in timeout, facing the corner. Then he fell asleep, and hours later I wandered off to go play. He woke up and got angry I left, so he busted into my room, grabbed me by the ankle, and lifted me upside down to administer a, thankfully brief, beating. When he'd call us out of our room, he'd scream our names, and we were so scared he was going to yell at us or hit us. So, the rule was when dad gets home, go to your room. Answer, yeah, wow. This brings back some rather unpleasant memories. At one point, I told my fourth therapist, the other three didn't believe me, that I thought my dad was going to eliminate one of us. He managed to talk me down from that, and it took years to learn not to let screaming and yelling get to me. My childhood left deep psychological scars that are still with me at 60 years of age. Talking about them makes it easier to cope, so that's why I'm writing this. Story 16. My parents would check my and my brother's teeth for sugar bugs every night after we brushed our teeth before we got in bed. If they thought we were trying to skip brushing our teeth, they would tell us they could see the sugar bugs and would make us go brush again. My brother and I were so convinced these sugar bugs were real, we would constantly ask when we'd be able to see them. My parents always told us only people 13 and older could see them, but by the time we got to be 13, we had completely forgotten about the sugar bugs in our teeth. Story 17. We weren't really allowed to lock the bathroom door. It wasn't a rule, we just didn't. We only had one bathroom, there were 5 of us. It was fairly rare to be able to bathe or shower without someone else needing to use the bathroom. In the mornings, my sister would be doing her hair in front of the sink while someone was in the shower, and then someone else would come in to use the toilet or grab laundry. We left it all in a pile on the floor. The bathroom was big enough for all of this. Also, my mom was a naked mom, and I think she disliked folding laundry. We had clean clothes, but they were all in a huge laundry basket in the pantry, which was at the other end of the house from the bathroom and bedrooms. So we all made partially clothed dashes down the hall, through the kitchen to the pantry to find clothes. Shockingly, I have no trouble using the toilet in front of anyone and talking to them at the same time or vice versa. It has been commented on positively in my last few relationships. It also came in very handy having kids because they seemed to know I sat down and barge in to ask me something. I am also really comfortable naked, but no one I've dated has complained about that one either. Answer, is your mom me? My husband was raised completely opposite of me, and sometimes I think he just likes me for the quirks of my not-so-normal childhood that has now transgressed into myself being a naked mom, not folding clothes, but they are always clean. Also going to the bathroom with the door open, El Mayo. I just be chatting and pooping while he tries hard to not make eye contact. I laugh every time. We've been together 9 years, so thankfully not a deal breaker, lol. Story 18. Having to change clothes, shorts or tank tops, when relatives or family friends came over so that the men boys wouldn't look. Answer, my dad tried to tell me to cover up when a friend of his was coming over. I was 12 and wearing a typical 12-year-old summer outfit in the 80s, tank top and shorts. My mother shut that shoot down immediately. She told him that if there was a concern about my attire around his friend didn't need to be at our house. An argument ensued and my mom and I went to a movie, which was something that never happened because we were poor. That friend never came back to our house after that day though. Story 19. We weren't allowed to refer to either parent as he or she. Had to be mom or dad or acceptable variations. Story 20. My dad never allowed me to watch The Simpsons growing up. When I turned 18, I watched it and loved it. Story 21. If mom's bedroom door is closed, do not knock, do not open. If one of us has a severed arm, ask yourself, do you really need to knock on her door? Maybe it wasn't a rule per se, but we knew the rule. Story 22. We were only allowed to eat candy on Sundays. Then my sister ate a shoot ton of candy on Sunday and threw up everywhere. Story 23. We weren't allowed to help ourselves to snacks, and if we had lunch, depended on which parent was home and the mood they were in. Answer, same, but we had a big garden fruit trees, so even if we hadn't eaten since the day before, we were told to go pick something. But Mom, it's February. We all got a little skinny in the winter. Edit, my sister and I used to hide tea bags and a little bag of sugar in our closet to make tea with hot tap water if we got too hungry. I'm just realizing how seriously fudge up that is. Story 24. All steak had to be well done. I didn't know anything less than well done existed until I went to college. Now I take my steak medium. Answer, this was my parents too. All meat had to be very, very well done. And they used to make fun of me for complaining about chewy meat. I refused to eat big cuts of meat because I thought it all tasted bad, flavorless, chewy like that. I had a moment of revelation when I got a free lunch at a uni volunteering event, and it was a Madrari steak. I was so shocked at how good it tasted. It's been Madrari for me since. I felt so vindicated when I learned that general consensus is in line with my taste, not theirs. Story 25. Can only wear jeans once a week. Cannot change at school by hiding jeans in your backpack. Mom will come and check and make you change. No black eyeliner. You will become a whore if you wear black eyeliner. No crying in public. You will be an embarrassment to the family. Story 26. If there was an event, after school or a birthday party or anything, and it was on a day they worked, it was an automatic no because they were at work. If it was on a day they had off, it was a no because they wanted to enjoy their day off. If I offered to be dropped off or picked up by a friend's parents or hell walk, it was a no because there could be serial killers waiting to kidnap me. My day was wake up, go to school, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, all day, every day. I had a really lonely childhood. Once people figured out that I'd always say no to invites. Story 27. We weren't necessarily allowed to get hurt, at least I wasn't. My dad deemed it unsightly and unladylike at first. I liked to climb trees and such as a kid, and he noticed I had a scab on my arm when I was in the 5th grade. Snatched me up by my arm and yelled at me, telling me it made me ugly and no boy would ever love or want to be with me if I had a bunch of scars. Then got mad at me when I said I'd hope a boy would not want to be with me over some scars on my skin. That's shallow. Turns out he was right, but it wasn't about physical scars. Nobody wants to be with someone covered in the emotional scars he left. Also, the same man who told me I was fat that same summer and wouldn't allow me to eat past 5 p.m. because I get fat and nobody likes fat women. I also had to ask permission for food and/or eat within his restricted times and regulations until I was like 17. If I ate outside of his restrictions, he tore me a new one. I have a very complicated relationship with food and my body now. There's plenty more, but yeah, my dad sucked. Story 28. I have 2 I haven't seen mentioned. 1, you must wake up at 6 a.m. regardless of day and would be punished if you failed. I often did fail as I had undiagnosed ADHD at the time, and it led to frequent arguments. They said it was to prepare me for the adult world. I now don't wake up even close to that early for my actual adult job. 2, I was not allowed to interact with males, as they were worried about me getting into a relationship while I was still in school. As a result, my closest relationships growing up were with other women, and now I am gay. Answer. Hey friend, your ADHD wasn't the only thing making you sleep late. You were just a teenager. Edit, child. People growing need more sleep, especially during puberty. I'm a diagnosed late in life ADHD too, and just know how easy it is to default to blaming our ADHD. It wasn't a disorder causing you to need to sleep past 6 a.m. It was the fact you were growing, and I just felt like you deserved to know that. That sounds so brutal. Story 29. I thought it was normal to not have a door to your room. I got my door taken off when I was 10, got it back when I was 13. Story 30. Shut up was a swear word in our house. If we asked our parents if our friends could hang out in front of said friend, answer was immediately no. I had to ask to have a sleepover with a friend 7 days in advance. Anything less than that was immediately no. Doors were locked at 8:30 p.m. If we tried to come home after that, it was sleeping on the porch. We had a box on the porch that had pillows and blankets for this reason. Was not allowed to sleep in later than 9:15 a.m. on the weekends. Story 31. No feet allowed on furniture. I like to sit cross-legged on the couch. My dad got upset every time. Years later, as an adult in my mid-20s, even bringing my wife over to my parents' place, he got mad at me for not telling my wife to keep her feet off the furniture. My wife has never sat in a seat normally in her life. She was taken aback at first. She started to put her feet on me, and I sat normally. Kind of minor overall. As an aside, the first thing I did when I moved out and got a couch was put my darn feet up on it. Story 32. This is my favorite from my friend who escaped a controlling crazy mom. Their family couldn't use beach towels when they went to water parks, the pool, or the beach because they were too nice to get dirty. Couldn't use the regular shower towels because those can't go outside. They each got one small microfiber cloth to wipe up with for the day. Story 33. My parents said that we had to have either an acceptance letter from a college or a leave date for boot camp the day we graduated from high school. They never said what would happen if we didn't. That wasn't a possibility. Story 34. We couldn't flush at night, so in the morning there would be loads of shit in the toilet. This honestly felt normal, but I now realize how weird that is. Story 35. I couldn't listen to modern music BC, it was all inappropriate. It turns out my parents, mainly my mom, was just low-key racist. She forced us to listen to her music, which was all about intimacy and substances, but all done by white people. Story 36. One of my cousin's parents had this thing called grown-up candy, which was basically candy that they drilled into their heads since they were young, was only for grown-ups. It was the parents' favorite candy too, El Mayo, kind of like adult beverage. She was 16 when she figured out Almond Joys were consumable for children. Story 37. Had to drink 2 full glasses of milk before being allowed 1 cup of Diet Coke. The room at the top of the stairs with the short door was the monster room, and I wasn't allowed to open the door. It was just a storage closet. There wasn't even anything interesting inside. Story 38. My mom told me kids weren't allowed in the grocery store after a certain hour, so she could leave us in the car and be alone in the store lol. Story 39. Painkillers and medication are only allowed as an absolute last resort. I had no idea painkillers and over-the-counter medication were used so often by other families, or that people regularly went to the doctors. Growing up in my family, things had to be incredibly dire before you could get things like medication or painkillers. Sick with a stomach bug or cold? Do you need to go to the hospital? No, then get your lazy jerk up. No medication. Severed a ligament in your knee, which you very much should go to the hospital for? Walk it off. No painkillers. Answer. I opened a door to a closet and a huge vase fell onto my foot, broke all the bones in the top of my foot. I blacked out and hit the ground from the pain. Wasn't allowed to go to the doctor. They will just take an x-ray and say it will heal on its own and will be a waste of money. I don't know, Mom. Maybe it would have been nice to get fudge pain medicine because ibuprofen and Tylenol is not going to stop it from being agonizing. Then she had the balls to complain when I would lay on the couch all day, hobble around trying not to cry, and otherwise be lazy. Funnily enough, when I pushed back on that, she relented and let me. Only time she ever did. Fudge meanie I could hear my foot crinkle from the bones. Looking back on a lot of things she claimed we couldn't do because we were poor was a lie. There is healthcare for kids that would have covered this. Maybe if she spent more time not reading the Bible and actually taking care of her kids, she would have known that, or worked so we wouldn't be poor to begin with. A woman's place is at home with the kids who can't go to school because of the evil secular world after all. But your kids eating a ketchup sandwich? That's fine. Story 40. Not mine, but my mom says my grandma used to make them take off all their clothes, except the underwear at the corridor as soon as they got home. We suspect she had untreated OCD LOL. Story 41. Not leaving your room for any reason after 8:30 p.m. The only time it was allowed was for an emergency, house on fire, and there was a camera pointed directly at my room with motion detection, so they always knew exactly when I was leaving my room. They learned the hard way that if I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom at night, I would just piss the bed and come crying at their door about it. So then it was changed to me being allowed to go to the bathroom, but that was it. Story 42. Comparing your children. My sister had straight A's, and I struggled. Since I struggled, I was considered the dumb sister by teachers and by my family. That behavior never subsided, and I felt like I wasn't ever enough. My parents thought I was pretending not to be smart, and they'd punish me for it. Lost my phone, got spanked, and got yelled at for being stupid. It made me feel not enough in every way. I got transferred to a smaller school with smaller class sizes. It helped so much. They didn't know I had a sister, so I wasn't getting comparisons from teachers anymore. Teachers took additional time to explain things, and when I struggled, they listened. This one teacher I had really noticed I was struggling and had me stay after class. I ended up telling him how my parents had this expectation BCUs of my sister. My dad picked me up that day, and my teacher talked to him without me there. After that day, my dad started to understand and listen to me. IDK what that teacher said, but it really made a huge difference. Story 43. You have to say hello to the plants. Every morning, greet the house plants. Respect the greenery. Spend time there. Well, I love that now. I'm going to follow it always. Story 44. Had to call every adult by their last name, Mr. and Miss, even when they wanted to be called by their first name. Wanting me to call someone by their last name when they were 28 years old and I was 12 and it went against their wishes to be called Sam blows my mind and undermines the other adults. Answer, oh God, this was me. I physically could not get myself to call other adults by their first names, unless they had a title like Aunt Mary or Grandma, etc. My best friend at the time, their parents had a friend who came over a lot, and everyone called him by his first name. They assured me many times that this is what they wanted, but I was like 7 and terrified of breaking rules. But I didn't know his last name. So in a state of panic, my child brain dubbed him Me-Man. Thankfully, I guess I was cute, and he thought this was hilarious. So I just ended up calling him Mr. Man for like the next 8 years until they moved away. For most other adults, if I couldn't figure out their last name, God's forbid I would ask. Far too shy for that. I got really good at avoiding calling them anything in particular. I could hold a whole conversation with them without using their name once. And now I'm starting to wonder if this is why I now have such a hard time remembering people's names. Story 45. If Dad was watching TV, we had to sit still in our chair. No lounging on the couch, no talking. Definitely could not be on the phone. That was Dad's quiet time. I learned to read in my room in order to avoid him. Story 46. My dad would block channels on the cable box, then take the remote to work. If we slacked in chores, he'd take the whole cable box. Story 47. Not a rule, but never eating anywhere where my dad couldn't have beer or wine. I was actually jealous of my friends who got to have McDonald's Happy Meals. Story 48. We were not allowed to eat the candies on the Christmas tree until the priest came to bless the house and the tree, which usually happened after New Year. So we would have to look at all the candy for 1 to 2 weeks, but couldn't eat them. I remember one year we had pretty good stuff up there on the Christmas tree, like chocolate Santas, full-size chocolate bars, even Coca-Cola cans. We never had brand cola in the usual day-to-day life. It was agonizing. Story 49. Women and girls were not allowed to whistle. I loved whistling and am very good at it. The rule was eventually softened to no girls whistling in the house. A whistling woman and a crowing hen never will come to a very good end was the accompanying limerick. I bit back by becoming an extremely well-practiced all-state piccoloist. Story 50. Our dogs were allowed on the couch, but we weren't until my dad moved out when I was almost 16. Lots of other crazy shoot 2 OFC, but that one is kind of funny. Story 51. The current weird rule here is no food in the living room. Our kids sit in the foyer with their snack food. Adult friends follow the rules too until the kids go to bed. Saves me from digging crumbs out of the couch, and it's way easier mopping spills on tile than from carpet. I remember the first time I ate in the living room as a kid. It was liberating. Story 52. No drinking at mealtime until you're done eating. My mom got tired of us filling up on liquids and not eating our food. Story 53. My parents would have to watch any movie before us. Didn't matter the rating, could have been G, and they would still have to watch it first before allowing us to watch it. And if they didn't like it, thought it was dumb or inappropriate, we didn't get to watch it. That rule lasted to about their 4th child, in the second oldest of 6. Story 54. Not me, but my husband. If him or his siblings farted, his mom made them clean the toilet as punishment, every time. Story 55. Dinner table is for intellectual conversation about world events. We had to bring a topic for discussion daily. No small talk allowed. I was not once asked about my day or anything I do. I used to love bringing opposing points of view like Hitler and Pol Pot and Stalin to annoy my parents. Story 56. We were not allowed to use the stove, microwave, can openers, or knives. My parents also only cooked meals maybe 6 times a year. That left behind a really weird and complicated relationship with food. Story 57. No drinks until you completed your dinner. That also includes water. Also, no video games or use of tablets during the weekday. Story 58. Not my parents, but my grandma used to watch me while my parents worked growing up. We weren't allowed to say fart, but pass gas instead as it was rude and not ladylike. Also couldn't say pregnant and instead said expecting or gonna be a mom. Ironic because my parents didn't really care about what I said. I guess my grandma was just really strict about her phrases. Story 59. Not a rule, but my parents had me so convinced I had to eat the crust of bread because it was the most nutritious part. Was like 30 years old before I realized it's just well-done bread. Story 60. IDK. If I thought it was normal in the sense of being common, but I thought it was acceptable. Not being allowed to use the bathroom after a certain time in the morning because dad wanted to reserve it for himself. Story 61. You cannot bang or ding your spoon against the side, only silently scrape it against the bottom of the bowl or carefully stir in a teacup. When I got to an age to eat at others' houses, I was shocked at all the spoon banging going on. Story 62. 5-minute alert. 5-minute alert. You've been on the phone for 5 minutes. Time to get off. Yeah, my dad only allowed everybody in the house to be on the phone for 5 minutes at a time because the phone is a tool, not a toy. If you stayed on the phone after you were alerted, had just unplug it. Story 63. No marbles, or bouncy balls, or small spherical objects of any kind. I thought this rule was because my brother inhaled the ammunition of his homemade blowguns. The first time it was one of those individually wrapped cinnamon jawbreakers you get at Halloween. The second time it was a pipe cleaner he had wadded up and coiled into a ball. He's probably the only person in the world who's inhaled a pipe cleaner whole. Nope. Turns out that regular old naked doctor playing pretend just wasn't adventurous enough for him. Instead, he and one of our neighbor girls decided to play their own version of Hungry Hungry Hippos. He'd shove all of the marbles in the game into her Hungry Hungry Hippo and then shed jump up and down to get them back out. Story 64. Literally not allowed to relax. As an adult, I would still jump up and look busy so I wasn't deemed lazy and get yelled at when my spouse would come home or into a room until one day I realized that he didn't care, and he certainly didn't do this when I came home or into a room. Story 65. I started working at 16 and only got 10 of my paycheck until I was 20.5. Parents took the rest of the money for themselves. Then I was expected to have enough money to buy my own car. Story 66. I was not allowed to flip coins. It had something to do with how flipping coins in public made you look like an old-timey gangster or something. This was back in the 90s too. Story 67. I was not allowed to sit in the aisle seat at the movies because someone might stab me with a drug needle. As an older person, really, as if someone would share their substances along. Story 68. No dating anyone until I'd known them for a year, and I had to talk to them every day for that year. Miss a day, start over. In practice, I knew it was impossible, so I never even tried. In retrospect, I think they wanted to keep me from dating before I got my driver's license, so they didn't have to take me places and pick me up. But because of the rule, I didn't date anyone until I was in college. TBH, though, I knew this was not at all normal. Story 69. If I go out with my friends and have fun tonight, I'm not allowed to go out with my friends and have fun tomorrow. Story 70. We weren't allowed in anyone else's house. We were poor. My parents could afford to replace stuff we might break. Story 71. Not me, but my friend's grandparents. She wanted me to come hang out there and meet them. They had a rule that you could not say the word fart. You had to say potty burp instead, which is infinitely more disgusting than the word fart. My dad said I wasn't allowed to go over there anymore because clearly something was wrong, those people. Story 72. If I went out at night, I had to be home by midnight. Otherwise, I would be locked out and would have to find somewhere to spend the night. I was never given a house key. Story 73. Not weird per se, but more of a realization. Growing up on Sunday mornings, we were not allowed to watch TV, play Nintendo, or even read the funnies before church. My parents said we partied too hard too much time, so we'd get all dressed up for church and sit and wait to leave in silence. When I was 18, my brother, 19, and I moved out to an apartment by our college. I woke up on a Sunday morning and went to the living room to see him playing PS2. I was like, dude, you can't play before church. And then it hit me. I could finally do what I wanted, when I wanted. It was like a revelation. What's funny is that we didn't even go to church that Sunday, or for the next few months. Just muscle memory. Story 74. I have a few, but they're all kind of under the same umbrella of being what my family considered proper. Only classical music was allowed. I didn't mind it because classical music is badass anyway. This one kind of stuck. It's still most of what I listened to. TV was only news or documentaries. I was home alone a lot, so I would sometimes sneak some other things in. So I knew some cartoons kids my age watched. Video games were fine, go figure. Movies were all pretty much right out. This one stuck too. I watched like one movie every 5 or 6 years. I watched some TV series, but movies are very rare. Story 75. I had to wait for the owner of the house I was visiting to ask if I was hungry or thirsty. I wasn't allowed to ask myself. Children are seen and not heard. Story 76. We were not permitted to eat or drink, except water from the sink, except what was served to us at mealtimes. My sister and I weren't allowed to open the refrigerator or pantry. I didn't realize other kids didn't have these rules until I was at least 12. Story 77. Here's a more wholesome one, I guess. We had to finish our homework on Saturdays, so that Sunday could be a true break with no homework hanging over our heads. Story 78. If your room wasn't military levels of clean, the bedroom door bed theme would be removed. Sleeping on a mattress on the floor wasn't too bad, but getting changed was really awkward as a teenage girl, especially because my brother would always have friends over. Story 79. No violent media, shows, video games, etc. And all MPAAESRB ratings are taken at complete face value. What's the crazy part is my parents are very liberal in every other aspect, gave me very good education about intimacy, substances, etc. when it was appropriate for my age, of course. Not religious, racist, sexist, homophobic. I spent my childhood listening to music with swear words in it and dark themes, Pink Floyd The Wall, for example. But I wasn't allowed to watch Teen Titans, the original, not Teen Titans Go, when I was 7 because it was too violent. When I was 12, I wasn't allowed to play Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess because it was rated T for fantasy violence. I wasn't allowed to play Skyrim until I was actually 17 years old and the game had been out for over 5 years. Because when you hit people, there is blood and they die. Story 80. We weren't allowed to dine out very often, and never ever fast food. We owned a restaurant, and my dad thought that was where we should eat. My mom and I snuck out on occasion. Story 81. I wasn't allowed to get girls' numbers, talk to them online, or hang out with them after school or on weekends. So many girls tried to talk to me, and after following this rule, I am in my 30s with a terrible social life. Story 82. I wasn't allowed to change my clothes when my brothers and dad were home. Sometimes I would have to sleep in my jeans or school clothes because they would always be home, lol. My mom was okay to change in the house, just not me. I am also the only daughter and my brothers are 10 years older than me. This rule started when I was 8. My mom had to supervise my showers till I was 16. My dad's orders. A lot more weird things like though, but I left at 18. Story 83. It took me until I moved out to realize people don't usually spend their time at home in jeans and other uncomfortable clothes. Sweatpants, etc. were only supposed to be worn during exercise. My partner still doesn't understand how long I lived before being comfortable. Story 84. We weren't allowed any toys with guns. Mom even wouldn't buy us Lego if the set had a gun. But Star Wars was somehow okay because blasters aren't guns. Story 85. Before cell phones, of course, I couldn't get phone calls to the house after 9 p.m. on weeknight. On weekends, though, it was extended to 10:17. When asked why that specific time, I was told if I ask again, weekends would also be 9. I am 30 and I still don't have the answer. Story 86. If you slam your door, it gets taken off. And the notion that privacy is a privilege for children obviously wouldn't do that to my potential kids, but I thought at least more people would have that experience. Story 87. Daily checking of grades the second I got home from school. It would be pulled up on my dad's laptop. I'm 22 now, and I'm still not fully recovered from the verbal abuse that came with me getting an 85 instead of an A. Now I make more money than my father did when he was in his late 30s, and I don't even have a college degree. Sometimes I send him screenshots of my bank account just as a fudge you. I turned out just fine. It feels really good. Story 88. No drink or salt and pepper at the table during dinner. It would be insulting to the cook, mom, if you season the food, and it would be rude to wash the food down with liquid. Story 89. I wasn't allowed to watch PG movies, let alone PG-13 movies when I was 13. Those were mom's rules. But my parents were divorced, and when I went to spend summers with my dad, it was a totally different story. He let me watch whatever age-inappropriate shoot I wanted. There weren't any curfews as long as I stayed in the general neighborhood. He even bought me wine coolers and didn't care that I stole his cigarettes. I spent most of my childhood going from one unhealthy extreme to another. I went from a stifling, uber-religious, oppressive, prudish environment to waking up on Saturday and Sunday mornings and finding random adults passed out on couches and floors after a night of hard partying. I was so jealous of my friends who had normal parents who set reasonable boundaries. Story 90. Colored socks only that had to match my pants, which had to match one color of my shirt, which had to match my ponytail holder. Why? Because white socks were for gym class only. No wire hangers levels of not allowing white socks. Only exception was the frilly lace ones on Easter, and I swear they got thrown away immediately because I'd never see them again. Story 91. Making meat helmets, luge lessons, spending summers in Rangoon, and being placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds after having been insolent was not normal. Story 92. Not me, but my brother's wife. She thought you couldn't go through a drive-thru if you didn't have cash. She was like 23 when my brother said, "Let's stop at Taco Bell," and she dug through her purse and said she couldn't go because she had no cash. And my brother was like, "No worries, I have my card." And she said, "You can't use the drive-thru with a card." Story 93. My father would threaten to beat me for leaving my ceiling fan turning while I was at school. Also had to turn the water off while in the shower, and I wasn't using it. Basically, get in the shower, get body and hair wet and rag or whatever to wash yourself. Turn water off, wash hair and body. Turn water on and rinse. I also wasn't allowed to be in there without the water running for more than like 5 minutes. I'm assuming the goal was to save on water, but even now as an adult, I don't think it's worth it. You get cold standing there wet trying to wash yourself. Story 94. My dad would call home at 11 a.m. every weekday if there was anyone home and the phone had to be answered. No ifs, ands, or buts. On the occasions we didn't answer, he would frantically call for 5 or so minutes before getting in the car to come home and check on us. Turns out, Dad has ritualistic OCD and would genuinely believe we died in our sleep, electrocuted ourselves, starved, burned the house down if we didn't answer. Also can only walk particular routes from his car into work and to the shops, or else his family will die, etc. Story 95. My parents had this rule that we weren't allowed to shower during a thunderstorm. Like, if it started raining and there was lightning anywhere in the area, they'd make us get out of the shower immediately, no matter what. I thought this was totally normal and just a safety thing everyone followed. It wasn't until I mentioned it casually in college that people looked at me like I was insane. Turns out it's a thing, but definitely not a widely enforced household rule. Now I can't hear thunder without instinctively checking if anyone's in the bathroom. Story 96. No cups of water allowed in bedrooms, in case it stained the carpet. An entire room that was not to be used or visited because it was her nice room. Entire sets of tea towels and bath towels for display only. No chewing noises at the table. And bedtime by 7:30. Honey was a banned substance. Standard stuff. Story 97. Mom would mop the floor and didn't want us walking through the areas she mopped, leaving footprints. Mom told us mop water was super poisonous, and if we got it on our feet, we'd have to go to the hospital. If I get Pine Sol or Fabuloso on my skin, I rush to wash it off in the sink. I know it's not a super big deal. It's probably not good for your skin, but something in my brain still treats it like it's super toxic. I genuinely believed it was toxic enough to make you sick until I was like 23, when I realized I've been walking around on dried cleaning chemicals my whole life and never got sick. Story 98. Another rule my parents had was that we were not supposed to lounge, lie, or have our feet on the sofa. Just sit on it like a chair. Had a friend over once that lied down on the sofa. My father saw this and ever since then has not liked here. We're in our 30s now and he still won't forgive her. Meanwhile, I am mostly always horizontal on my sofa, and feet on it are a must. Story 99. I wasn't allowed to wear black bra or underwear because only whores wore those. I've since been to therapy and realized how messed up my childhood was, LOL. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Story 100. I believe this one's pretty common. My parents said it was illegal and also horrifying, dangerous to have the overhead light on in the car while driving. I was honestly shocked to find out it was all lies. I can drive just fine with the light on. I still don't understand why they made it sound so dangerous. Story 101. When I was like 8, I slammed my door and got it taken off the hinges for a good while. My youngest brother is older now than I was then and slams his door almost daily, also in 5th grade. Since I wouldn't get up for school, they had already tried blasting loud, annoying music. My dad had to make sure I got dressed, so I would get dressed under a blanket on my bunk bed every morning. Story 102. My parents were pretty relaxed. We couldn't have food in our rooms, but that's because bugs are a real concern due to being a tropical area. We also weren't allowed to have TV in our rooms. We could watch TV in the living room as much as we wanted, within reason, but it wasn't allowed in our room. We weren't banned from using laptops to watch stuff when older. It was just having an actual TV. I thought it was reasonable. I couldn't live without my bedroom TV now, but it kind of makes sense for kids. I dislike it when someone's parent would leave on a TV all night because I couldn't sleep until the VHS ended, because I felt weird messing with other people's electronics without permission. Story 103. Never speaking or interacting with other family members and generally trying to be quiet as a mouse. Story 104. No TV during the day and for a while could only watch PBS. Also, could not pour a full glass of any beverage. Story 105. I lived by a chart system. For every chore that I had done, I would get a set amount of points. At the end of the week, I would be able to trade those points for one of 3 things. 1. Around $5, $10. One of 3 privileges. Computer, TV, or Game Boy Advance. 3. A toy or book that I wanted to buy. The way it was set up, if I chose the electronics, I would only supposed to use it from Friday to Sunday, since Sunday would be the start of the new week. That meant I only got around 2 days of electronics use, so it wasn't very long. That said, it eventually phased out, but I thought that was the norm for kids. Story 106. Everything food-related was portioned, and it wasn't to save money. For example, cheese sticks were limited to 1 a day. I once asked if I can have none that day and have 2 the next. Answer was no. It felt like luxury being able to eat 2 at a time at my best friend's house, LOL. Also, my mom kept me and any older kids away from any new babies. Like, we couldn't even interact with them at all until they were like 2. Also, I was kept in a crib until my little brother was born when I was 5. Bottle till 3, high chair till 5, 6, stroller till 6, 7, and could only watch little kids shows like Barney on VHS until I was 12, so I never got to watch a lot of the movies other kids my age watched. Story 107. Not my mom, but my grandma. Anything used to replace a curse word was treated as a curse word. What in the fruit salad was a soap in the mouth offense? Story 108. That turning on the lights inside the car while driving is illegal and forbidden. This made me completely dislike it afterwards when I am driving and others do it. Story 109. If you got hurt playing outside, you had to stand in the grass and bleed, not on the sidewalk, in the grass. As an adult trying to get blood out of carpet, I now understand this rule. Story 110. We had to refuse gifts, Shelp, because it was rude to accept. Man, that was stressful when I started dating my now husband, and my Mael, who had always wanted a daughter, wanted to buy me a bunch of clothes. We weren't allowed to put our elbows on the table while eating, because when you are older and get invited over to some nice young man's house for dinner, he will think you are rude. If we went swimming in a pool and my mom got in, we weren't allowed to splash, jump in, do anything that could result in her hair getting wet. Story 111. As always with these things, I'm amazed at how much people remember from their childhood. I'm drawing a blank most times. Like, I remember the people I grew up with, the homes we lived in, vaguely, and some things I did with my friends, but mostly it's blank. I assume I had some rules growing up, but I don't remember them. One thing regarding this that I remember is actually about two of my friends who were brothers. I remember vividly how their mom got super bossy about them having to shake their bed sheets through the window directly after getting up Sunday morning, and they were not allowed to sleep in late. So I guess I can conclude that my parents weren't nearly as strict, since that event got ingrained in my brain as something really out of the ordinary. Story 112. I was too afraid of the ensuing argument to ever ask to go out with friends whose parents my parents were not personally close to, even when I was 18, 19 and home from college. As a result, my friends were pretty limited to church folks. We did not actually get along, and one or two school friends I had to fight my parents just to spend time with. Then I had to listen to them talk these 14-year-old girls when I asked for an explanation as to why they weren't welcome in our house. My one friend who was dealing with a really rough home life got because she didn't make enough eye contact with my dad. I thought this was normal mostly because I was obviously quite sheltered. And if this seems reasonable, consider that this controlling behavior continued when I was living at home after graduating from college, through my mid-20s, as an adult with a full-time job. It also morphed into my mom passive-aggressively belittling me for my inability to do anything, apparently, if it meant living outside of their house, which meant I had a really hard time getting away. I didn't think I was capable. I had a breakdown one night and asked my mom, genuinely, how was I supposed to meet people and network if I was not allowed to go anywhere or talk to anyone? She got really red and stormed off. Mix in some physical abuse and a hefty amount of emotional neglect, and here I am, finally unpacking my life with a good therapist, age 30. Things are starting to make sense. I have more boundaries with my parents now, and I'm going back to school to dip my toes in something I would have never believed I was capable of at 18. For the record, my parents have apologized for their behavior as the years have gone on. I usually change the subject because no, I do not forgive them. My sisters got out by joining the military and getting married moving away. I am the youngest, and I no longer blame myself for having such a hard time getting out of that house. Story 113. I was banned from eating avocados because my mom said it would make me fat. She actually deprived me from many foods, but my siblings were allowed to eat them. Story 114. Man, y'all had some fudge weird jerk parents. No wonder mine were adamant about who we were allowed around. Bunch of fudge sociopaths, LOL. Story 115. We were not allowed to run anything on max or high. We couldn't run a floor fan on high. We couldn't run a lawnmower full throttle. I have no idea for the reasoning other than my mother was and is batshit crazy. Story 116. That we had to give all of our toys away every 6 months. I thought every child who got toys for Christmas and birthdays gave up their toys every 6 months to other kids who didn't have toys. I thought all of us kids just shared our toys with the other kids. My parents made us, not one toy was ever kept. Story 117. No junk food at all. Ever. A couple months ago, I had a colonoscopy. My mom picked me up after and stayed at my house to make sure I was okay. I started eating chips since I hadn't eaten in 24 hours, and she tried to take them away from me. I am 50. Story 118. No Pokemon cards allowed in the house. A story about a kid jumping out the window thinking he was a Pokemon was floating around. Story 119. In the summer, my parents would lock my brother and I out of the house bright and early on Saturday mornings, and we weren't allowed to come home until dinner time. Story 120. We could sleep in their bed as long as we didn't wake up Dad. I would sneak onto the foot of the bed if I had a nightmare. I just figured that was the standard rule. Actually, my mom was trying to protect Dad's sleep while he worked 10-hour days plus night school. Story 121. Many TED Talks on what we'd learned in school that day at the dinner table, with our parents quizzing us at the end. It was stressful. Story 122. 8:30 p.m. bedtime until I was like 15. Absolutely sucked. They were trying to prepare me for the workforce and enforce good sleep habits, but I've always been a night owl and would just lay there awake. Literally took a job where I would work until 11 p.m. and not have to get up until 11 a.m. for 75 of it, lol. Story 123. Wow, my childhood was roses compared to this. Parents were divorced, And at my dad's, the kids had to stay in the finished basement all the time except for dinner and bed. But at home, there were no crazy rules. We were loved and included in most things. Mom was a little overprotective, but nothing too bad. I didn't even have a specific bedtime. Her cousin's husband was over to fix something one night, and it was like 10. He asked my mom why I wasn't in bed. She said I always get up for school, no prob, and make really good grades, so she's fine with it. We did have chores, but nothing unreasonable. Now I appreciate even more the way I was raised, except of course at my dad's. His house was awful. Story 124. My dad always told me that if I'm at some social event and leave my cup soda alone, that I have to get a new cup because wasps are attracted to sugar and I'll end up drinking a wasp, getting stung in throat and dying. So better to just get a new drink. Did that for years. I'm a 24-year-old woman now and realized a couple months ago that he was probably just making sure I wouldn't get drugged at a party or something. I'm absolutely terrified of wasps, so it just made sense at the time, LOL. Story 125. I was not allowed to say no to an adult. It may not come as a surprise that I don't talk to my parents anymore. Story 126. We weren't allowed to pass on the stairs. If someone was coming up while we wanted to come down, we had to yield for good luck. We also were not allowed to take off a shirt if we put it on inside out. We needed another person to do it for us again, for some luck superstition. I asked Mom when I was a teen, what if I put my shirt on wrong and I am home alone? Crickets. Story 127. If the ice cream van jingled, it was because he had run out of ice cream and was just letting us know. Story 128. Don't talk about religion. My dad is atheist and would get so mad if I talked about God or Jesus as if they were real. He would give us a talking to about how they were fake. He'd ridicule the idea of angels, heaven, or an afterlife and made it clear that we would all die and there was nothing after passing. He'd laugh at my mother when she would find comfort in signs from dead relatives. I'm atheist as a result. I think I would have become one anyway, but I think it would have been nice to believe in heaven when I was 7 and Grandma was dying. Story 129. I didn't think it was totally normal, but my mom always opened and still does the car door for me, as I should expect others to do so. This has led to some embarrassing moments when I actually forget to get out myself. Story 130. I wasn't allowed to play Sega Genesis because Sega backwards is ages and Genesis means beginning, so I guess it was satanic. Story 131. My job growing up was washing the dishes after every meal in the sink. The dishwasher is only for storing the dishes. I always thought the washing machine is for storing dishes. Story 132. I wasn't allowed to have any food or drinks in my room, which sounds pretty normal until I note that this included water bottles. If I wanted a drink of water, I had to go to the kitchen to do it. Story 133. When I got my period for the first time, my mom had told me tampons are only for people who have intimacy. Story 134. Not my house, but I had a friend growing up whose parents wouldn't let them play CDs unless they listened to the whole thing. Their reasoning was they spent all that time making all their songs, so appreciate them. My friend started buying just the singles at that point, and that was okay. Story 135. Not my parents' rule, but at my grandparents' rule, kids had to lay on the floor when the Seahawks were playing. You couldn't get up until a commercial. Granted, looking back on it, the TV was in the floor, and there was no rewind options. So if you say up or stood up, Grandma and Grandpa couldn't see the game, but we were too young to understand it. All we thought was someday when I get bigger, I'm gonna watch football from the couch. Story 136. Oh God. My dad would wake me and my sister up early every weekend, being obnoxiously loud and tipsy in the morning on his days off, and would get pissed if we ever questioned it. Not being allowed to say what? If I couldn't hear him, it had to be pardon, or I was sent to the corner. Wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons, South Park, etc. Wasn't allowed to wear makeup or shave my legs until I was 16. No TVs allowed in the bedroom because our bedroom is only for sleeping. Story 137. We couldn't sit on any of the couches that had sheets on them so they wouldn't get dirty. We couldn't use any of the 3 vacuums because they might suck something up. And we couldn't get any food without permission. And several of our toys were locked in a closet so we couldn't play with them because they might break, or we could lose pieces of the board games. Oh, and all of our stuffed animals were in a display case in the living room and we couldn't play with them. Story 138. If I bought a CD, my mom would go through the little booklet to check the lyrics first before I could listen to it to see if there was bad words. Meanwhile, I was 16 and I'm sure I was saying far worse than anything I was listening to music-wise. Story 139. We were only allowed in our bedrooms when it was time for bed or to change clothes. We had to be in the living room with the parents. I thought that was normal until I started spending nights with friends and found that all of them were allowed to actually play in their rooms. Imagine that. Story 140. We weren't allowed to be loud, fight, or scream in the car at all because that's how Princess Diana died. Screaming children along the road eliminate her. It was only when we were older that we realized it really wasn't true. Parents still deny they ever told us, but we remember. Story 141. Don't watch the TV up close or else you'll get bad eyesight. It's like, nah, I'm pretty sure it's genetics that lead to nearsightedness. Story 142. I wasn't allowed to have pierced ears. My dad said those were for pirates, hookers, and slaves. My mom had hers done. Well, your mother is a beautiful lady. My aunt and mom took me to Claire's in 7th grade to have them done, and he nearly hit the roof. He was so pissed. Story 143. No toy guns allowed in the house. My parents wouldn't buy them for us or let us buy them with our own money, and visitors couldn't enter with them. They didn't like the idea of us playing war and shooting. Toy swords were fine, BTW. Story 144. When I was going through puberty, I wasn't allowed to have any privacy. I begged to have a key, but never got one. Instead, I got a bunch of excuses. This gave them opportunity to constantly pressure me into babysitting, knowing how I don't have key to lock myself in. When I closed the door, they would open the door and yell at me for closing it. I realized that wasn't normal long before I became adult. Story 145. We couldn't talk until after my dad finished the morning news and his breakfast. Had to tiptoe up the stairs or else we'd get yelled at for being too loud. Never had friends over because my parents' room was at the top of the stairs from the living room, and my dad would yell to turn the TV down until nobody could hear anything at all. They also had the cable company come out when I was in middle school to disable access to Nickelodeon. Only Nickelodeon. They said the kids were too bratty. It didn't get removed until after I started high school. Needless to say, I have a few sensory issues as an adult. Story 146. The babysitter said there was no talking at the dinner table when we had lunch, or you would be punished by sitting at the table in silence for an hour. Then my parents were upset when we wouldn't talk to them at the table during dinner. They just wanted to visit with us, and we didn't want to be punished. I dislike babysitters. Story 147. I was not allowed to take a towel around me after a bath and just go to my room. I had to put on pants and a shirt in the bathroom before getting out of the bathroom. A bathrobe was also not allowed. The oldest take care of their siblings. I was sure this was normal. Story 148. Visits and fish smell after 3 days, my father used to say. So I try to never stay more than 3 days at any of friend's house when I come over. If I stay more, I usually take an hotel. Story 149. We weren't allowed to drink water unless it was a special occasion. Only milk. I also wasn't allowed to leave the house unless it was for school, work, church, or running errands with my parents. My mom had my commute timed with a 2-minute grace period. Story 150. Dinner was at 6 o'clock on the dot, and we had to be there. The exception was Saturday night when we each had to make our own. When we got older, the rule was, once you move out, you can't come back. One sister was 26 with a great job and refused to move, so my parents sold the house and told her there was no room for her in the new place. Story 151. Breaking things, even the smallest and most inconsequential of items, was grounds for a punishment. I remember breaking a juice glass accidentally and thinking I was going to get disowned and become a street kid. As a result, I was a very gentle child and handled everything with kid gloves. But still, to this day, I start to panic a little bit if I break anything. Pretty much everything I've ever accidentally broken is etched into my memory. Story 152. They had snacks that kids weren't allowed to have. Never realized it was weird to have food be off limits in a house until I was older and realized my friends didn't have that rule in their homes. Story 153. We weren't allowed to have a color TV in the house growing up. Dad was concerned about radiation. In high school, our BW TV died, and I thought, we're finally going to have a color TV. Wouldn't you know it? He found a new, but old, 36 BW TV still taped up in its original box at a flea market. Years later, after graduating from college and setting up my first apartment in another state, he came to visit. I changed the contrast on my 65-inch TV, making it seem BW to make him comfortable. Watching TV that night, he asked me what was wrong with my TV's color. I fessed up and told him that I thought he'd prefer B. He then fessed up himself that he'd had a color TV in his bedroom for years. Story 154. Every other weekend, I visited my dad, who married a rich woman. She had a whole living room and a library that no one was allowed to use. They just had these rooms for show. My stepmom also used to buy books by the foot for the library that no one ever read, just so it looked fancier. Didn't seem normal to me then, doesn't seem normal to me now. Story 155. I wasn't allowed to have a trash can in my bedroom. I had one for a while, and one day my room was messy for a bit, so my parents took my trash can away as punishment. Still have no idea what the reasoning was there. Story 156. We couldn't wash our hair in the shower. It destroys the pipes. We had to wash it in the slop sink in the basement. Story 157. Not me, but I had a friend as kids who had to ask their mom anytime they wanted to eat. Mom, can we have cereal? Mom, can I have some water? Not even asking mom to cook, but nothing was consumed without permission. I thought that was so weird af and stopped going over because I would starve. Story 158. Couldn't leave the table until my plate was empty. I was left at the table in the dark, alone on many occasions. Granted, the table was pretty close to the living room, but the rest of the family would go watch TV together. I could clear my plate or sit there until bedtime. Story 159. Girls weren't supposed to get their ears pierced until they turned 16. Some of my friends at school had pierced ears when they were around 12, but according to my dad, they were from lower class families. I never understood the logic, but once I left for college, it was one of the first things I did, get my ears pierced. Story 160. Bedroom was only for sleeping. Wasn't allowed to sit or chill in it during the day. Only at night? Story 161. From the age of 5 to 14, I wasn't allowed to wear my hair down and had to keep it in a ponytail because I didn't keep my hair tidy enough and looked like a cave girl. Eventually, after my dad escorted a choir trip, he realized most of the other girls my age wore their hair down and said he would allow me to wear my hair down again as long as I kept it neat. I'm 33 and I still keep a hairbrush in my purse, so you can infer from that what you will. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vancher. See you soon.